I'm really excited to have a short conversation with both of you today about why Trinity College is a really important place for thinking about climate change at Duke. What's exciting that Duke has the opportunity to do is to infuse discussions about climate change in every discipline and for every student. And all three of us have just been involved in this first university course on climate change, where I think we really blew students' minds with realizing, like, whatever career path they follow, whatever disciplinary scholarship excites them, there's opportunities to engage with the existential crisis of climate change in a useful way.
And every week they got exposed to a different disciplinary viewpoint. And how does someone in languages think about, climate change, or how does someone in public policy think about climate change? And what a great, not only way to understand climate change, but what a great understanding of the disciplines. So for a freshman or a sophomore to be able to think, like, what aligns with my thinking, what gets me excited, like what gets me passionate.
And for them to know that there are any number of ways to think about a problem or an interconnected set of problems, which is really what you're doing when you're talking about climate change. And to see that kind of play out in real time. And I think part of the joy of the climate class and part of talking to y'all and sort of thinking through this is to have students understand that there's not a single answer to that question. What is the nature of the problem?
Right, and to do that, I think we need humanists, we need historians, we need people to help us think through, like, the context in which these decisions, how we've gotten here. Mm-hmm. What are the impacts? What are the environmental justice implications? And then we need the innovators, right, and the inspirers that are going to change what we see as the solution space. I think a lot of this idea of, like, what are the imaginary futures we might live into requires something well beyond the sciences.
And I really like your phrasing, the kind of imaginable futures, which have to be produced across the disciplines, right? Like, some of that is about sort of technological imagination, some of that's about analytical imagination, some of that is about the really weird and surrealist and glorious things that you come to through the arts. And it's figuring out the kind of common ways to interpret and translate and talk to one another and think with one another that's going to give us hope.
Eco-performance. I can't wait to see what Duke is going to do in the dance department around environmental activism, or all of the ways that the environment is affecting every single thing we do. There's no space that it doesn't affect, and that's overwhelming, as you're saying, but it's also something that we can tackle when we make it small.
I think for the longest time you said kind of like climate, and people thought about polar bears floating on ice floes, and that's horrible. But there are plenty of folks who were like, I don't like polar bears so much, right? But when we talk about climate, we're talking about, like, monsoons taking out whole neighborhoods. When we talk about climate, we're talking about all of the ways in which communities end up getting polluted because of the effects of the things that produce sort of, like, fossil fuels in the first place. We're talking about a combination of, social justice concerns and structural issues and science, right? So it's not simply that, people across the disciplines have something to contribute to this scientific problem, right, but that when we say existential problem, we mean something that touches all corners of human experience.
I think the phrasing of that climate change is a force multiplier. Anything that's already problematic is made more so by climate change, right? And so you can think about how this intersects with every other sort of problem that we think about as scholars. The theme of let's talk about climate change, sort of the real goal was, like, get comfortable having conversations where you don't know that much. Right. And I think they really loved it. And I think we as faculty involved in this also loved it, this chance to use the climate initiative to have conversations that cross disciplines in kind of new and interesting ways. Not just for our students, but for us, for our graduate students, for the faculty as a whole. And so infusing this big problem of our time and thinking about how we're each sort of confronting it as humans and as scholars is, for me, it's been really generative. And it's brought me a lot of hope, actually.
I often hear, what are Duke students like? What do your students know when they get to Duke? And they all come to us from such different places, right? And they all come with such different disciplinary knowledge and interests and passions. And this course was so great because it caught every single person where they were, and it took them to a different place. And I think having students see us learning from each other and the importance of that, so sort of is just a really nice microcosm of what happens in Trinity. It's not just telling students that they need to work in interdisciplinary groups that are vertically integrated, but we do that too.
Part of the goal of Trinity is to, and our work in the Climate Initiative is to let students really see the full arc of possibilities. Where do I get my sort of joy and fulfillment? Do I want to go into innovative science and like try to solve a piece of this problem? Do I want to go like describe what we're losing from a scientific perspective? Do I want to go think about how to write a novel that inspires people to change the way they think? Do I want to be a historian and look at previous social movements and what they've done? So I think that's something that we offer, and it's kind of an exciting platform. It's a cross-cutting platform that creates an opening into this broader exploration of what you want to do with your life.
The sort of like lifelong learning, the lifelong work, and the sense that it has to be done in dialogue with others and through through inquiry with others seems like very important for the specific question, but really important for setting our expectations for what we're offering our students.
So a core piece of the Let's Talk About Climate Change course was that students had to keep a journal, and each week the scholar that we were talking with would assign a conversation starter, and they were super interesting. You assigned the article, the book about Katrina. You assigned this incredible documentary about immigration, Ai Weiwei's Human Flow. We had the Pope's encyclical. Just an incredible range of things that they were reading. They had to react to that before class, so we could kind of see where they were coming from before they started. And then after our conversations and their discussions with each other, then they reflected on what they'd gotten out.
We talk about sort of sitting with it, but it's them returning to their thought and their response over time, as opposed to like, you think of it as the difference between journaling and like shooting off a comment and underneath an article in the Washington Post or something, but saying like, rather than throw an idea out there and then move away from it, to come back to it, to refract and sort of come to something else, to synthesize across. There's a value to sort of being connected to oneself as you think about what response is viable and vital and necessary in the moment. And what journaling does is let students change what they think the answers to those questions are as they move through this particular experience, but also through the broader experience.
So I'm personally really excited about Trinity's role inside the sort of first leg of the Climate Initiative, and thinking about how positive that experience was, how eager, the class filled, the faculty fellows were eager we didn't have to twist any arms to make this kind of interesting new thing happen. And it just shows me there's all this energy that's available to really make this a conversation that is really infused throughout all of our coursework and all of our disciplines. And I think that, to me, that's the exciting thing about the Climate Initiative, and what Duke can particularly and uniquely offer is this chance to really imagine what the future could look like when we send this cadre of incredibly talented, energetic, creative people out into the world with a really different context for how they think about climate change.